Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by Mandrill, the best way to send transactional email from the people who make MailChimp. Sign up today at mandrill.com. And by Sharefile from Citrix, secure file transfer built for business. Visit sharefile.com, click on the microphone, and enter TWiST for a free 30-day trial. And by AWS Activate. It's easy to start and scale your business with Amazon Web Services. Check out free resources like one-on-one office hours with AWS Solutions Architects and much more. Learn more and sign up at aws.amazon.com/activate.
Hey everybody, it's Jason Calacanis, and this is This Week in Startups, our News Roundtable edition. We've got a ton of news for you, including Google buying Twitch, AT&T buying DirecTV, and a bunch of new launches, including a toothbrush that is connected to an app, a golf club sensor that goes on all 14 of your golf clubs. It's an amazing episode. We talk a lot about Google, SEO, publishing, and the news with two amazing journalists, and they are Ben Parr and Dawn Chmielewski from Recode. Stick with us.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Today on the program, we have the very famous angel investor and entrepreneur, Ben Parr of the Dominate Fund. Ben, are you there?
Very famous is an overstatement, but I appreciate it.
Okay, how about internet web famous? Entrepreneurish webpreneur famous.
That dude who does stuff on the internet.
Dude who builds stuff on the internet. And the Dominate Fund, for people who don't know, is an angel fund of what size, or what do you do? How many investments have you done? What amount do you invest in? Explain to people if they don't know what the Dominate Fund is.
We have 7 investments so far, checks between 50 and 500,000. We are a specialist fund, a strategic fund that specifically coaches startups on how to gain more visibility and accelerate their growth and capture attention on the branding, the marketing, the customer and user acquisition, and press side and all those other areas, along with using some of my research that I obtained during the course of writing my book.
Okay, there you go. And give a plug for the book, of course.
Well, it doesn't come out till Q1 next year, but yes, captivology.com. Book on the real science behind why we pay attention to certain people, certain things. Why we are so captivated by you, Mr. Calacanis.
Ah, there you go. Very good. And with me for the first time, Dawn Chmielewski. I got it right?
You did.
Chmielewski, welcome to the program. Now,
Thanks.
You are with Recode and formerly of the LA Times. How long have you been with Recode, and what are you covering?
I joined in March, and I'm covering primarily mobile technology, but with a little digital media on the side, since I spent 8 years at the LA Times covering the media landscape. So
you have opted in to work for Kara Swisher? I
have.
Okay. Sure, I don't know what that says, but you are a brave person. Gotcha, Kara. I'll see you next week at the Recode conference, or I should say, I guess the Recode conference starts on Tuesday, but we're all getting up there on Monday, maybe.
Yes.
So that's going to be an amazing event. You guys have Sergey coming. That's a big deal.
We have a phenomenal roster. I mean, we've got Reed Hastings coming from Netflix. We've got Sergey with Google. I mean, there are more people than we can possibly mention. It's going to be a phenomenal conference.
Yes, and there will not be an awesome poker game occurring at 9 p.m. Every night. All right, listen, it's a huge news week. Let's get right to it. Twitter was thought to be buying SoundCloud. Obviously, that's both Fred Wilson investments. Maybe not, obviously. But Fred Wilson invested in both those companies. SoundCloud is the YouTube of sound, essentially, is how the founder told it to me. Recode reported that a deal could be underway. Talks broke down. I guess the Wall Street Journal picked it up. Would have been the largest acquisition of a German startup, perhaps. And I guess Twitter was interested maybe in expanding into content a little bit more. They did hire Baljeet from YouTube, so they obviously have aspirations of content. Dawn, what happened? Why were they interested, and what happened? Why did it break down?
Well, I'm not, why they're interested is they need to find some way to grow their user base. They're at about 200 million. Investors are disappointed with their rate of growth. They're not yet as large as Facebook, which I guess is not surprising, but nonetheless, the street has high expectations. And Twitter has, has benefited from its adjacency to television programming. I mean, they traded off that very heavily. And they're looking for some way to gain momentum in another space. Music seems logical. People go on the site and talk about music all the time.
Yeah.
Twitter tried to launch its own music service without success. It was up
disaster.
and down in a year.
Yeah.
So why not buy something that has a ton of traction? I mean, SoundCloud is a really phenomenal place.
Yeah, it has tens of millions of views. I don't know the exact number, but it probably.
Frankly, nor do I. So
yeah.
It's like
what do you think?
It's like it's a large amount. It's over 200 million, I believe.
Yeah.
It's
Really?
a really large service. It's huge. But the issues are like there's always the issues of monetization, and it's not cheap to store all of that audio. So I mean, Alex from SoundCloud is a friend, and I really do love that service. But I tried to figure out how you would integrate the two or find a way to carry off the two, especially considering Twitter's failures in the past with music.
Yeah, I mean, and then you've got I think what may have been the deal killer is the L word. I mean, the music companies will say that they didn't have any licenses for this content. Now, let's be frank. I mean, the artists are uploading their content. Lorde, for example, before her Grammy-winning track was available worldwide, went to SoundCloud and uploaded it there to fans first.
Right.
So it's like a great discovery platform.
And interestingly, they've had great success with Vine, which is another media platform. So it seems to me like Twitter could become a brand with a lot of sub-brands inside of it. Like SoundCloud could operate as its own company, with Twitter just being the advertising part of it, or maybe a deeper integration into Twitter.
That could make sense. I mean, certainly Facebook has pursued that strategy, right? They've got a number of distinct brands that aren't all rolled up into Facebook.
Instagram being the biggest,
right.
Yeah, obviously. And so why do you think it broke down? Because I did see I think the Wall Street Journal said the numbers didn't add up, which is a weird statement to make. Because that sort of I was disappointed in hearing that, because that would be like scarlet lettering the SoundCloud, right? Which I don't think, I mean, I know Dick Costolo would not do that to a startup because he's a startup guy.
Right. I'm not sure, I won't make it up. I don't know, but I don't know. I know that when I go to SoundCloud, there doesn't seem to be a clear commerce play. There doesn't seem to be an obvious revenue play. Maybe Ben has some other insights in terms of.
What do you think the monetization will eventually be? Ben, you have any ideas?
I mean,
advertising?
I think that is probably one of the big questions that Twitter was asking itself, trying to figure out, how do we actually monetize this entire user base? Because they're really, really thinking about monetization along with user growth. You can't buy a service for $1 billion and not have a clear idea of how you're going to make a ton of money off of it. Unlike Google, with YouTube, Twitter can't afford to take the time to support SoundCloud for years. I think there might be advertising. I don't think would necessarily work. I think it might be more of a subscription or something else that they could possibly do. But honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, I think 250 million users for SoundCloud from producer Gina. Thank you. I think there could be some native advertising kind of play here, where if people did have some type of audio that they wanted to promote, you could put that in between other people's streams. So if Lorde is uploading a bunch of stuff, there could be on the right-hand side a couple of SoundCloud files that you could listen to. But I thought that was a great purchase, and I think they should have done it, because every time you add media to Twitter, it reinforces its position as where the important artists and people play.
Right.
And so they're obviously, and I've been, pushing this for a long time, even before they hired, I guess, Baljit from YouTube, that they are going to be YouTube's biggest competitor, because if they just allowed Ellen and, Justin Bieber and all these people who have tens of millions of followers on Twitter to upload video, because they can do Vine right now, but if they could upload video and then Twitter sold the pre-rolls against it, oh my God, would that be incredible? Because those artists, their persona online is not their website, it's their Twitter handle, and it's not their YouTube channel. So I thought this was a perfect acquisition. It must have been the money was wrong.
Someone's going to buy it. Someone's going to buy it. It'll be a Google, it'll be a Facebook. Someone's going to buy it.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, GoPro wants to make and edit videos, not just hardware. They're getting ready to file for their IPO. Financial documents show GoPro has plans to expand beyond the hardware that goes into skiing or your motorcycle helmet or a drone. They've already taken marketing deals with athletes like Shaun White and Kelly Slater. The company plans to develop a platform for editing and sharing videos, starting to sound a little bit like YouTube or Jump Cut, which Yahoo bought back in the day. GoPro hopes the existing users publish to the platforms. It already has YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter feeds and channels as part of the GoPro network. What do you guys think about GoPro and how they've turned into a company? They're going to become a media company, you think?
I mean, that's a really interesting idea. They've got all this great UGC that ends up, I mean, it appeals to a really attractive demographic. I mean, active, young, users. So you could see how it kind of fits with media consumption patterns. I'd much rather see some organic video of somebody, surfing through a half pipe or doing something else interesting than something produced by a reporter who really isn't in the sport. So it seems like there might be some appetite for this kind of content.
What do you think, Ben? If they bought a cable channel and it was 100% GoPro videos, would that channel be just like the biggest thing on DirecTV and cable networks? I mean, like.
First, I'm gonna remind you. By the way, that reminds me, we have a bet still about YouTube buying a cable company. What is that? Ends like end of this year or next year. I can't wait to win that one.
Yeah, it's a big sushi bet.
The second one is.
So that we can make another bet on this one. Will GoPro have a cable channel in the next 2 years?
The answer is no. No way in heck. They might do a like in social network type of thing. It's a part of the media play, but I think they're taking lessons from Apple and Google, especially Apple, which is you build great and amazing hardware, but it's not enough anymore. You have to build decent software or a software platform for people to build on top of, because software is the other half of the equation now. You can't just live on hardware because eventually eventually the hardware gets commoditized.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like they're the Apple of these video cameras. There's so many cheaper options that will come out over time. But it also feels like if you're like one of these surfer dudes or you're parachuting, it doesn't matter if you spend $500 on your video system or $300 or $800 because your cost of your surfboard and jumping out of planes is so high, right? You're spending $3,000 on a mountain bike. You don't really care about a $300 a camera. You think Apple should just buy these guys before they go public?
Oh, that's an interesting idea. I don't know. Well, certainly Apple has gotten out of the invented here mentality and is spending its cash more freely these days if the Beats Apple acquisition comes to fruition. I don't know. I don't know. I don't see it fitting with Apple, but I'm not inside.
So wait a second. Is Tim Cook speaking at Recode this week?
He is not.
He's not. And he did speak last year at the D conference, the predecessor to the Recode conference. But the WWDC is the week after, so they're going to announce Beats there, obviously. And Beats seems like it's a done deal.
If I were placing bets, I would bet sushi on that.
Yeah. Okay. Easy, even money sushi bet. Ben, what do you think?
On which thing? There's like 3 different things we have, like whether there's going to be an acquisition or
let's talk about the acquisition of Apple and then Apple's approach to Beats. Yeah, those 2 things.
I can't really tell for certain. I think that at this point they will have to close it almost, but they might be having second thoughts. And if it doesn't seem like it is closed right now, and with it not officially closed, that every day that passes by, the percentage that it actually happens tanks. It has to be done or destroyed by WWDC.
Right. So you're saying you think there's a chance that the Beats deal might not happen?
Oh, I absolutely think there's a chance the Beats deal might not happen. If it were absolutely happening, we'd know by now. But if there's a chance that it might not, I think it's still better than 50-50 that Beats gets acquired. But there is a real chance, and every day that passes, that chance lessens.
All right, when we get back from this commercial break, let's talk about YouTube buying Twitch.tv and AT&T buying DirecTV and what all this means for the future of media. Thanks again to our friends at Sharefile by Citrix. Sharefile is designed for business. It's file sharing that you can trust in the cloud to send files securely. This is what you want to use for your IP, contracts, term sheets, sensitive documents, and you can send them all as secure links with Sharefile. Files of almost any size, and you can access those files from any device, computer, mobile device, etc., laptop, tablet. And it's really sophisticated in terms of the granularity at which you can give permissions. You can request a file to be uploaded to a specific folder, then get alerts when somebody downloads it, have control of who accesses it, and what levels of permissions they have. You can send huge files as well. So go to sharefile.com, click on the radio microphone button, and use the offer code TWiST. That's right, go to sharefile.com. click on the radio microphone button and use the offer code TWiST. We use this here in our organizations, This Week in Startups and the Launch Festival, to do all of our contracts, all of our assets for all the conferences and all of the shows. No credit card is required, and it's a 30-day free trial. And we have an exclusive for you. You can get the top 10 questions asked and answered by the top investors in the world: David Cohen, Joanne Wilson, Dave McClure, Steve Jurvetson, Brad Feld, Mark Suster. Just sign up for Sharefile with the offer code TWiST, TWiST, and then send a request a file link to sharefile@launch.co. Yep. Request a file link to sharefile@launch.co. Thanks again to our friends at Sharefile by Citrix. It's a great product. We use it here, as I said, and it's just really well put together. And you know those folks at Citrix do a great job with their other products as well that I'm a big fan of. Okay. YouTube is buying Twitch. The deal is estimated at $1 billion. It's an all-cash offer, which would be YouTube's biggest acquisition yet. And YouTube, of course, was one of the bigger acquisitions by Google. Of course, Motorola greatly and Nest are also very large ones since then. It was founded in 2011 by Justin Kahn and of Justin TV, which is the company from Y Combinator's First Class, along with Reddit and Sam Altman's Looped. But of course, Justin TV was kind of a failure, and then they pivoted and spun this out. I believe it was a spin out, but it lets users upload video game commentary, something that has been a mainstay for Machinima, which has done layoffs and had all kinds of reported problems. So this begs the question, what does this mean for Machinima? Because it seems to me like, once again, Google is buying MCNs or content companies and then competing with the people who were previously their partners, i.e. Machinima was a huge partner. Google invested in them. Now they're buying their biggest competitor. What is Google doing? Do they have any rhyme or reason to how they buy these companies? Because it seems to me like this is a backstab to Machinima, is it, Dawn?
Well, it's a really interesting. I mean, it's a provocative question, and you'll have to drag in Alan Debevois to ask him if he feels the knife blade in between his shoulder blades. But I mean, I think it's an interesting platform play by YouTube, and an interesting move into live TV streaming, which is something that they don't currently offer, and that's an intriguing little gambit. But look, don't forget, like Twitch is on all the game consoles, and it's sort of like a logical place for that kind of content to live. I mean, it's been described, I guess, as the ESPN of people who love video games. So why not? Why wouldn't you sit and watch an expert player sit and watch?
Play StarCraft or whatever.
Exactly. Okay. I'm not that audience, but I don't watch Sports Center either. So there's that. But I mean, I think it's interesting that it gets YouTube even more present on new platforms, and it gives them this tool for live TV streaming, which is capacity they don't have, and that's the more intriguing part to me.
Yeah, so they do some live streaming on the site, but they don't have like a bunch of TV channels as such, right? So the interesting thing there isn't it that they just had a bunch of takedown notices of everybody who was doing video game content. So the whole video game content community hates YouTube for turning off all of this video game content. The video game publisher said, well, wait a second, we don't want to penalize all the video game people who are putting stuff up there. Why are you taking all this stuff down? I guess it was one or two publishers who hated it. And now YouTube, after taking all this stuff down, a couple of months later, goes and buys somebody publishing the largest amount of video game copyrighted content, which they were taking down. This looks incredibly sinister from the outside. Is it sinister or clueless, Ben?
So first thing, before I go and continue, I actually have equity in Ustream, which is one of the competitors, so I want people to know that. With that said, it's a loyal audience, and it's a growing audience in a very big vertical. Like, gaming is probably YouTube's biggest vertical now. You think about PewDiePie and how giant his YouTube following is, and a lot of others. Like, I feel like half the time if I'm on YouTube, I suddenly run into Minecraft streaming or something else of the sort. Or I guess League of Legends, which I've never played, but apparently is like the biggest thing on every single platform out there. There is clearly rhyme and reason for this, both on the having a streaming platform and just having a huge community of gamers.
But it does seem, and Dawn, I'm going to force you to answer this, does YouTube, because you cover this space, does YouTube have any idea, or Google have any idea what the optics look like when they do these deals, that, they punish all these video game independent tiny little people who are paying their rent, like literally paying their rent, Then they invested in Machinima. Mm-hmm. Hundreds of millions of dollars, I think it was, or something. It was $100 million.
I want to say $35 million, but I can't. I need somebody to fact check me.
Yeah, so some huge amount of money. Mm-hmm. Then they go buy the biggest competitor in the space, and they're going to compete now with them, heads up, and the people who they just took all their content down. This seems like it would trigger a bunch of investigations by, the government in the way Microsoft behaved. Do you think Google is clueless, sinister, or what?
Here's what I think Google is, and I'm not. I will give you option 4, which is they're experimenting with how to monetize arguably the biggest video audience in the world, right? More than 1 billion monthly viewers, and they have a problem that they're trying to solve, and the problem is scarcity. Like as we've discussed, they have infinite content, and when you have infinite opportunities to advertise, the price for the ads simply drop because there's no urgency, there's no scarcity. So if you suddenly are able to provide live programming that draws people in the moment and draw it on their platform, you suddenly have a really good opportunity to monetize this content. I look at this as purely a business play.
Yeah, but that's Machinima's business, right? It's like, hey, we're going to give you that audience of that young demographic.
Right.
So again, back to that question, like, what does Google look like to the venture community or the, when they invest in one company and then buy their competitor? Isn't that like foreboding? It's just weird. What do you think? Dawn's like, I have to talk. Dawn's like, I have to work with these companies.
No, it's just like, no. I mean, like if I had any reporting that suggested that they were, sitting in the back room figuring out how they could screw Machinima, I would be happy to tell you that, but I just don't. So.
But doesn't it look bizarre to you, Ben? Am I the only person who thinks this shows like a complete, utter lack of loyalty? And worse than lack of loyalty, it feels to me like it's so cutthroat, you're backstabbing your partners. Are they backstabbing their partners or not? Ben?
If it were, I don't necessarily think so. If it were a completely direct competitor, then maybe. But like live streaming, they don't get a completely different audience. Yeah, both are video game, but the people who watch YouTube, and the people who will watch like a live stream of League of Legends, they are different people. And so I think it's just them acquiring another asset, and they could potentially offer something like free live streaming to Machinima. I don't know what, but I don't necessarily see it as like this like clash that's going to destroy like all the relationships. The other thing to remember too is YouTube is the only player in the video space, essentially. Yeah. Like, who else are you going to go to if you're Machinima?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think there's a good chance now. I think Yahoo buys Machinima, and just basically goes heads up. And then when you're buying video game or young males in this or whatever the demographic is, maybe it's 10
and that's exactly it.
35-year-old men or whatever, you just pick either between Yahoo's, Machinima or this one.
Mm-hmm. It could be. It's like, it would be interesting to see if they find it worthwhile. I think Machinima is in an interesting juncture now. They have to figure out sort of what's next for the company. They've gone through management shuffles. They've gone through, layoffs. I mean, they need to figure out what's next.
Yeah, if I'm Machinima, I am going to partner with Yahoo or Facebook or anybody to go heads up against Google after like Google backstabs them like that. That's me. I would be, if I was a Machinima investor right now, I would be on the phone to Larry and Sergey and Susan Wojcicki and screaming from the high mountains, like, how could you do this to us? Like, who could ever trust Google to invest in their company again if they would do something like this? Let's get on and move on, since I'm obviously going on a little bit of a rant here. Actually, you know what? Okay, yeah, we'll do one more story, then I'll just do a break. AT&T looking into, AT&T has bought DirecTV.
They made an offer.
It's
subject to regulatory approval.
Of course.
Not a trivial thing.
Right. So now AT&T buying DirecTV gives them like that full package. What do they call that? Like the home run or something?
Yeah. That's it. It's triple play. Anyhow, I mean, yeah, they already did. AT&T had a small but fast-growing video offering in Uverse. Right. This gives them a dramatically larger footprint of video.
Tens of millions of DirecTV
like
subscribers. 20 or something. Yeah, and I have DirecTV and I love it. So when I see AT&T is buying DirecTV, to me that's like, oh my God, I got off of AT&T for a reason. They suck. But what is AT&T's interest in DirecTV here?
I mean, they get what they said on the call with investors on Monday is they said, look, we have a company with a decent brand, with very close relationships with the entertainment world, and we think that the next growth opportunity for mobile is entertainment. I mean, anyone with a smartphone or a tablet knows that video consumption is going through the roof. So AT&T sees this as an opportunity to leverage those relationships and bring more content onto their devices, which is it's a smart competitive play on their part.
So I'm a DirecTV subscriber, and I take out my AT&T phone, and I'm watching the videos from my DVR, not from my house or something.
Yeah.
Because the DirecTV app is pretty dope.
Yeah.
You can I think you can only watch the stuff on your DVR, though, when you're in your IP address range.
Right, that's a licensing issue, right?
It's a licensing issue. But if you VPN'd into your house, not that I'm saying I know anybody who does that, you could actually then watch your DVR from anywhere, technically speaking, if you knew how to use a VPN.
Yeah, if you were technically sophisticated.
If you're technically sophisticated enough to use a VPN. But does this mean that AT&T wants to get more into original content? Because DirecTV has started to do their own programming on a couple of channels on there. Like they do the Artie Lang show, and they're doing some other content very lightly and a little bit schlocky, to be honest.
I mean, the jewel for DirecTV is the NFL Sunday package that they have. Remember?
Yes.
In fact, that's a deal killer. If DirecTV can't renegotiate, renew that package with the NFL. The deal could potentially kill this acquisition. That's how valuable, and coming from the media world, you well know that the NFL is still the most watched programming on TV. It kills every other form of programming.
And it's the thing people get DirecTV for, because you can get every single thing in high definition, and they don't, unlike Comcast or other bandwidth-constricted cable companies, on DirecTV, they give full HD to every channel. They don't have to compress it down because they run out of things. Ben, what do you think about all this with the DirecTV and the NFL?
I mean, first of all, I think it's a smarter deal for AT&T than their last attempt, which was T-Mobile. Mostly because I think this one has a better chance of passing regulatory muster. There was no shot in my mind that the T-Mobile one was going to pass muster. And it's partly there's a little bit of a defensiveness, too, when you're considering what Comcast has been doing the last couple of years, Comcast acquires an entire, oh my goodness. So you need a couple of weapons, and DirecTV is a very good company with a good reputation and a complementary package that they can upsell and they can plug in, and they can make some money off of it. I think that it makes sense. But there is that NFL thing, right? Just it's really shocking just how much power the NFL has on all media and all these media channels, how much they're willing to pay to have it. It is just that popular.
See, I think Google should buy DirecTV, and Google, obviously, Larry Page was meeting with the NFL last year.
Right.
That report came out. I'm not sure where. Maybe it was one of your stories.
It was Recode. It was actually
Recode.
Peter, but in the end, the NFL still has to recognizes that its audience, and its audience is not all online, and it's not all mobile. There's still a huge television audience, and let's face it, that's the platform that can be monetized most effectively. They're looking at billions of dollars in revenue from TV licensing deals.
The interesting thing I heard was that they were going to, in the next deal, there would be an over-the-air deal, which DirecTV would win, and then they would do an online deal, which Google was going to win, and YouTube would have all the things. And then you look at Chromecast, and I don't know who's got Chromecast out there, but I have Chromecast, and now when you're in YouTube, there's a Chromecast button permanently on the top right, and you just press it, and boom, it works.
It's magical.
It is auto-magical in a way that even the Apple AirPlay isn't. It just doesn't work as smoothly. So, man, I think that could be the move. Is if you sign up for the NFL on YouTube for whatever amount, you get a Chromecast for free, because they gave it away for basically free before. What do you think of that idea, Ben? And Chromecast in general.
It's the NFL powered by, I guess, Twitch, because it's live video. I mean, look. The NFL would be very smart to split those rights into both television and digital. You can sell both for very, very high premium packages. Google, it all depends on the price. I think it would depend what people are doing on YouTube. So I would say overall it makes sense depending on the price. Dollars here. There is a price where it's not worth it.
All right, so when we get back from commercial break, we'll do the Bing Startup of the Week, and let's just take a quick pause for the cause. All right, thanks everybody for tuning into this amazing episode, and thanks to my friends over at MailChimp for creating Mandrill, which is transactional email. If you don't know what transactional email is, those are the emails you get to reset your password, that you got a friend request, that somebody followed up to your comment, that your package is coming, all of those important things that startups try to communicate to their users through the most important, most personal channel, email. And if you get caught inside of the spam filters, which are getting harder and harder and harder to pass through, then you are going to have a huge problem. Your startup is going to fail. Your customers are going to hate you because they don't have the time to go search for you in their spam folders. And you can get real-time, amazing analytics from Mandrill, and you can go to mandrill.com to check it all out, and monitor the performance of your transactional email in real time. So all of a sudden, on a Sunday at 3 p.m., you find out you're not getting delivered. Why? Oh, somebody did a phishing attack against you. Oh, you put a word inside one of your emails that's triggering the Hotmail or Yahoo mail filters or AOL's mail filters or Gmail's mail filters or whatever it is. You need to know that, and you need to have a partner like Mandrill who can do that. It's super easy to get started, and we use it for all of our transactional email here. The pricing is incredible. The first 12,000 emails a month are always free. After that, you pay on a usage basis. And people used to build this themselves. They would get a QMail server and put it in their server farm, and they would try to send it themselves. Then what happens is they make one mistake, or their IP address isn't really validated by those really discerning email providers who care more about the customers than their customers, the people who actually have email accounts with them, than they do about the marketers or the startups, as the case may be. And so your IP address is not going to be on the golden list. Well, Mandrill's, their IP addresses are all on these golden lists. And if there's a problem, trust me, the Mandrill and the MailChimp people know who to call and say, hey, this is a good actor, not a Russian spy, ring, Chinese spies trying to scam or spam or spoof. So go ahead and sign up at mandrill.com and thank Mandrill app on Twitter. All features are available to all users, by the way. You're not getting any feature gating. Okay, so let's get right to it and do our Bing Startup of the Week. Great. Okay, so here we go. Our first clip is from the Osmo, which I guess we can start playing the clip here. Osmo combines iPad learning games with objects like puzzles and letter blocks. iPad camera can recognize tiles from tiles that form puzzles or words. Here it goes. And so they're loading the app right now. You can draw on a piece of paper and interact with a game on screen. So as you move those things around, the camera is seeing that you're putting it together. This is actually like this is important because this is like an IQ test, this kind of geometric stuff. I know because, as insane as this sounds, we sent our 4-year-old for an IQ test. And like the IQ people are like, why are you sending your 4-year-old to an IQ test? And it's like, well, we want to go to this school and they require an IQ test. So like, you really don't need to do this. It's kind of weird. But this is the kind of stuff that like kids need to learn. This is the kind of stuff they test kids on IQ tests about, is their like geometric stuff. So this looks really cool. Okay, next up is a golf club sensor that measures your swing usage of each club, putts, and more. Arcos is the company behind the app, and the 14 sensors that you put on each one of your clubs. My God, this sounds incredibly expensive. And Dawn, you wrote about this for Recode. It's a golfer's job to know how far my 4-iron goes, how far my 5-iron goes, says Arcos co-founder and chief executive Sal Saeed. Right now, every golfer guesses, except for the PGA pros, who have people in every tournament tracking how far every shot is going. This looks fascinating. And then finally, our third startup of the week is a Kickstarter for a connected toothbrush. You heard that correct. It's a connected toothbrush. And that measures how well you're doing. Now, are we supposed to guess the fake startup here, or are we actually guessing? Because this does seem like a fake startup of the week. The Colbree has sensors to show how long you brushed your teeth and in which areas. Your mom's going to be super. This is really important because your mom gets an alert even when you're 43. It pairs with your app over iOS, and it charts performance and shares stats with your dentist. Because, you know, your dentist really does need to know exactly. I mean, have we really gotten to this point? The gamification for kids. And, you know, there was a company I invested in called Green Goose that had this exact same idea. And they put a little dongle on the toothbrush, which just showed how often you move the toothbrush. So it was kind of interesting to see somebody try to productize this. I do believe, like, for kids, it's kind of cool. So, Ben, let's go to you. Walking through these, which one was your absolute favorite? Which one was your runner-up? And then which one do you think is the actual launch of the week? So give me your runner-up, Ben.
The runner-up for me is the toothbrush.
Okay,
and
why?
Because it's a huge market where you can actually teach kids to do something they really need to learn. Maybe it's also because I'm just not a golfer.
And would you invest in that toothbrush?
That gives you a hint.
Yeah.
No.
No, not investable. Okay, and your number one
not
is?
Not investable. Is the Osmo is definitely the iPad application, and the reason is because I think it could be a platform. Imagine game developers creating amazing games using that technology to create games for kids, and you could do a lot. You could expand that a lot. I also just think there's a lot of potential for teaching kids important skills using iPads.
I agree. Dawn, what are your thoughts? Which one was your runner-up, and which one is your top startup of the week?
Well, like Ben, I'm not a golfer, even though I love this technology. I actually went out on the golf course and watched it work, and it has actually the slickest Bluetooth pairing I've ever seen. You literally change the orientation of the club, and that synchronizes the device to your phone.
Oh, so clever.
That like is the bomb. That is like the technical tour de force of this technology.
Yeah, so elegantly simple.
Yeah, exactly.
So if the club face is up,
right,
not connected. When the club face faces down,
well, they just
connect.
flip it, right? And then they have an accelerometer in it that can tell if the club is actually moving through a swing or jostling around in your trunk when you're driving around. So I think it's a really clever technology. I have to give it my runner-up award. I really like the Osmo. I think that's got some cool long-term implications. And
which would be what?
I mean, again, as Ben articulated, I mean, there are some really interesting ways to extend this to other kinds of learning. Kids are already using these apps on tablets, as you know. If you've got a 4-year-old, they're all over it. So to have some sort of learning application on there that can see what I'm doing is pretty slick.
Yeah, I'm actually super fascinated with the Osmo. The golf club sensors, I've seen some of those sensors before. There's a couple of other companies that have done it. We actually had one. What was the name of the one that launched at the mobile event? Gina, let me know. I forgot. Zepp Labs, right. And so they have an incredible one that can go on bats as well. But this is taking it to a whole nother level of 14 sensors, or one on each thing. The only thing I'm wondering about is, does it actually, are the balls somehow?
No.
So wouldn't that be the holy grail if you actually had some way of knowing where the ball landed?
It basically calculates the distance from strike to strike.
Yeah.
I don't know how the PGA feels about altering the composition of a ball. That probably is a
so it knows that you walked a certain distance. There's GPS or something on it?
No, it uses the phone's GPS to calculate the distance from point to point, from strike to strike.
Oh, so that does it in a way.
Right.
Perfectly.
Right.
But man, is there a way to know? That would be the holy grail if you could not alter the ball, but know the ball's height, trajectory, spin, all that kind of stuff.
That would be cool. I don't know if it helps the golf game. Like, I don't play golf, so I can't tell.
Which would be interesting to know, like how high it went as well, right? All those kind of things. But wow, people are going to get good at golf with this stuff. So that's my runner-up is the golf. The connected toothbrush is great for kids, but it's a tiny idea. And my God, like for adults, if you really need to know all this stuff in your app, like I don't think you're an adult. Like you probably shouldn't have a phone or money to buy this. Like we need to work on your adult skills. But clearly the golf sensor is brilliant. But the Osmo, boy, does that open up a lot of possibilities. So thanks to our friends at Bing for putting this on. And if you go to Bing and you use their awesome products, great search engine. It's my default on my, it's the default search engine, by the way, on my phone and on my iPad, because I like to see like the difference between the other major player. And boy, it's amazing. There's really great design and some great features on Bing. Like this is my favorite. When you're on Bing, if you are on the video search, you can actually see a preview of all of the videos just by hovering over them. It's really, really interesting. But don't turn off the adult filter when you do that, because you might not. Previews can get a little rough on any of these search engines if the adult. I noticed that the other day because I had turned off the adult feature, and it was like I did a search for somebody's name, and like hit the. Yeah, I'm like, oh wait, that's a different bell. So anyway, just keep that in mind. But thanks again to our friend Bing, and congratulations to the Osmo people who have combined iPad Learning. And Gina, I would love to book Osmo on the show. That would be the reward for winning the startup launch of the week, or the launch of the week. All right. So there's a bunch of SEO mischief going on back to Google with a quiet rollout of Panda number 4, and it stripped eBay of 80% of their results. At the same time, Matt, who runs Metafilter, who is like one of the most loved people on the web, has lost 80% of his traffic or something like that as well. Over the last 2 years, he's laying off his employees, which is something that's near and dear to my heart because I had to go through the same thing when Matt Cutts targeted Mahalo and eHow and Associated Content and a bunch of other people for death. And then I met with him and like tried to talk to him and like say, hey, Matt, why are we being targeted for death? And he's like, you don't have a penalty against you. And I'm like, Matt, I'm going to lay off 75 fucking people. Sorry, you can believe that. I'm like, these are people's jobs online. He's like, well, we don't really know. And I'm like, how do you know? Oh, I'm only the web spam person. So you don't have a penalty. I'm like, well, where'd the other 80% of our traffic go overnight? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, you know what? If everybody at Google is smarter than me, and I know that, like literally the dumbest chef at Google is got 10 more IQ points on me. Absolutely. I know that they hire people from like real schools, not the schools I went to, like no problem there. But if you're all that smart, do you really think I'm going to fall for the fact that you don't all talk to each other? Like he's like, well, we don't talk to the ad team or the search team or this team or that team. We just do spam. And it's like crazy like deflection. But what is going on with eBay, Dawn, because you covered this story, that they lost 80% of their traffic because a cynic would say, well, eBay is a commerce site, not just auctions. And, didn't Google come out with all this shopping stuff in the last year or two? And now they're putting that automatically above eBay. And then eBay magically a year or two after Google builds direct competitors to them is pushing them down?
Okay, well, as you present the argument in a way that is certainly incendiary. All I know is what Google has said.
And that's why people tune in.
I'm going to pretend I'm a journalist here and just tell you exactly what Google has said.
Yes.
I mean, they people, my colleague Jason on this at Recode has done a bit of reporting around this, and apparently eBay is being punished for some SEO manipulation. That is what his reporting showed. And it gets to a level of technicality that I can't even begin to.
Well, it's always a moving target
way.
too.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so that is the on the record explanation. I don't know whatever else has factored in, but you know,
so
that's what they
say.
So
Ben, why? If you were Google and you're a direct competitor with eBay, why would you take away 80% of their traffic without telling them? Wouldn't it behoove Google to not look like they're targeting their competitors for destruction and simply tell them, here's an error you made? Because if they know it is an error or, you know, some malfeasance, whatever, wouldn't it be better for them to just say to eBay, hey, you might want to correct this by this date or else you're going to lose 80% of your traffic, Ben?
There are two scenarios.
Hey, let's we could cut out Ben's video and then just do audio with him. So Ben, why don't you turn off your video so at least we can hear your thing, because that'll make the audio crystal clear. So just turn off your camera. Okay, and then let's just hear from Ben. Ben, what do you think the two scenarios are?
The first scenario is I think Google and eBay have probably been talking and we just don't know it. And the other scenario is probably more likely that there's also the possibility that this update, they just didn't know how badly it would punish eBay. But I bet you they've been talking.
Yeah, I mean, I know for a fact that Google does not share this stuff ahead of time, so I can actually confirm that because Matt Cutts has told me that. Other people have told me that inside of Google. They don't communicate any changes ahead of time to anybody. And I think, honestly, like, I've been giving Matt Cutts a really hard time on Twitter about this because, you know, it's like really costing people their jobs, and it looks like Google's a bully, frankly. And I said to them, why don't you just tell people at panda.google.com you can see the changes that will be implemented on July 1st. And your site has taken this percentage hit or that percentage, just some level of additional communication, because they're settling all kinds of, interventions with the EU and the government's looking into their stuff. Like,
yeah, I mean, none of the search engines have ever provided any kind of transparency, into what they weight, how they go about their process of weighting results. I mean, so it's been a frustration for everyone across all industries. And even news organizations can see their fortunes rise or fall when an algorithm changes for some reason that's never explained.
Yeah, I think all these sites that are being affected should just do a massive class action lawsuit against Google to force them to have some level of transparency. So if eBay and Metafilter and eHow and all these people that Google, Yelp, that Google competes with and then also dings them on SEO got together and put pressure on Google, they might actually take a step to be a better communicator of these changes. Now, what do you think about Metafilter, Ben? Have you been watching that at all?
I've been watching that. It's been years since I've been there though, and it's an older site. It's an emotional, and it's unfortunate because Metafilter has this kind of place for people who are on the web really early. And some of the things that I've heard as explanations don't make sense for why they've been punished. On the other hand, the site has felt a little less relevant over the years, and some of the stuff on there is like its old design and its old work. And so I can understand why it might drop some in the rankings, but it's the drop that it's had over the last few years is shocking.
Yeah, it's completely shocking, and one wonders because when that Metafilter came out, the first thing like Jeremy Stoppelman from Yelp is tweeting about it. So it used to be everybody was afraid to challenge Matt Cutts because you were like, oh, if you challenge Matt Cutts, then he is going to punish you more. And I think that's true, actually, in the past. Like, if you challenged him publicly, you were basically not doing yourself any favors because then you wouldn't be able to reach out to the team there and get some help. Right. But now what you've seen is people have given up trying to get a fair shake from Google, and you have a public CEO like Jeremy from Yelp basically piling on because Google tried to buy Yelp, didn't succeed, and then bought Zagat and put Zagat on top of Yelp in the rankings. Yeah. They literally... And the whole claim, this is why I said Matt Cutts is a total liar, because Matt Cutts says they didn't change anybody's algorithm or anybody's ranking. But then what they do is they put their services in a box that takes up 400 pixels, or even on your phone, it takes up the majority of your phone screen, and they push organic results 600 pixels down. So this is why, and I said Matt Cutts is a liar, and I stand by that statement because he says they didn't change organic search. That is a convenient way to say, we are putting our own services above yours, but that doesn't count as search, even though it's a search result page. Google is inserting their stuff right above the organic search results, moving organic search results down the page. So even if Yelp had number one, they now have number one that's 400 pixels down, which means they lose 95% of the clicks. Yeah.
No, it's definitely a problem if you're in business of competing.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess Google should be allowed to. I mean, what do you think, Dawn? I mean, it's their search engine. Maybe we all got a free ride for too long.
Well, look, I mean, there always are choices. Consumers always make choices. I remember when remember Alta Vista? Remember when that was the default search engine? Yeah. It's not like Google will dominate the space for all time, right? It's for now. Presumably, Bing has an opportunity. Yahoo is investing, right, and trying to improve search. So, it's consumers can vote with their mouses.
Yeah. Ben, what do you think? Should Google, if you were running Google, if you were Matt Cutts, right? Because I've been laying into Matt Cutts a whole bunch. And by the way, I just want to say, I think Matt Cutts is a nice guy. I just think he's just behaved badly in this whole situation, and it's a lack of leadership on his part and communication. But Ben, what are your thoughts if you were Matt Cutts or you were Google in charge of the search engine? How would you approach, this very volatile, we're basically replacing everybody who was a partner approach?
More transparency and maybe a better appeals process. But it's
expand on that. How would that work? The transparency in the appeals process in your mind. What would be something you would do?
You were talking about something that I liked, which was having maybe a thing where like, here's a sample results of what the change will look like if you can do that. Yeah. And being able to see it. And then people could just search in their own and like panda.google.com and see like, oh, my rankings drop on here. And then maybe have the ability to figure out something of why, or make an appeal for, oh, this is going to really, or after it really hurts you, making an appeal of like, we're quality content, here's the thing. That would be better. There is no perfect solution to this, though, as long as Google is the dominant market player. And it's not the fault of Google, it's the dominant market player necessarily, it's the consumers. We have all chosen, in general, to use Google. And as a result, we have given Google that power. And there's like even other companies banding together won't make much of a dent against Google in that. The only thing that'll make a dent is the end of the desktop.
Yeah, and that's actually, I think, why Google is so panicked and focused on Android is they realize like, hey, people, I mean, I don't use Google for local search. I go to Yelp and I go to Foursquare because I trust those players. So as much as Google is, destroying Yelp and Foursquare through a systematic devaluing of their results by pushing them down the page to promote their own products, and legally so, apparently. It's their service. I don't ever use Google search anymore to find stuff. I just open Foursquare or Yelp directly. So I feel like it's sort of like the market's going to work itself out to a certain extent, which is why I don't care. Hey, let's talk about Facebook. A Facebook executive, Mike Hudak, I'm going to say Hudak, ranted about the loss of serious journalism in a Facebook post. Journos responded in droves that articles are commissioned to go viral on social media. Hudak referred to stupid stories in Vox and BuzzFeed. Vox reporter responded, Facebook is to blame. What are your thoughts on this one?
You know, it's really interesting. This is a debate that's going on in every newsroom across America. There's this constant tension between, you know, the desire to tell people what we as journalists feel they need to know to do this sort of impactful journalism, and the competing desire to drive traffic to the website.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the very large news organization that I worked at the LA Times, begins every day with a list of trending terms on Google, and that ends up, you know, functioning like a tip sheet. And we end up responding to what people are talking about, and when there's more traffic, it propagates more stories on the site. So there's this really interesting conundrum going on in newsrooms. You know, what is our role as journalists? Is it to provide serious journalism that we think people should know, or is it to produce more cute, you know, more stories about Justin Bieber because we know it'll drive clicks? And in the end, you know, newsrooms are trying to do both. The reality is you only have so many resources. The amount of resources are dwindling.
Right.
So the choices you make are really impactful.
And the truth is, if you pick something that's trending on Twitter, even if it's something inane, like has Justine landed, you know, the executive from IAC, like you kind of can't ignore that story because it's become a phenomenon. But it's also like some weird, like minor story that would never have been covered before. Now the LA Times is covering that, or the New York Times is covering that, instead of you know, what's going on with, you know, the girls who are missing, you know, in Africa who have been kidnapped.
Right.
And you only have a certain amount of resources, like you're saying, and in Nigeria, thanks, Gina. What does that do to journalism itself? Because you're basically, by picking the more important story, you're sealing your fate in terms of traffic.
You know, you know, look, I'm not at this publication anymore.
Right.
But I mean, I was among the contingent of journalists who argued, okay, we can't ignore what people are talking about. I mean, because then you fall prey to valid criticism of arrogance. I mean, it's true. You know, you saying that Miley Cyrus Wrecking Ball is not an important story, screw you, I'll find it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And you could make an argument that, you know, if people are drawn to Miley Cyrus Wrecking Ball, maybe they'll discover something impactful about runaway production in Hollywood, for instance.
Okay.
You know, the LA Times tried to solve it by creating a dedicated crew of web-only reporters who write off the trending terms to free up the print journalists to do the more serious stuff.
Right.
The reality is we all end up writing a lot, and that does take away from the time that you have to spend on the more in-depth reporting.
Yeah. Ben, what are your thoughts on this? Obviously, you were, you know, involved in the space, publishing.
Yeah. I'll talk about my former employer. BuzzFeed and Mashable have done a good job in terms of mixing the serious content, we'll say, with the lighthearted content. And a lot of journalists were blaming Facebook for the issues that they perceive in journalism. It's not Facebook's fault. It's the user's fault. It's our clicks that are saying, like, we really want to have, 57 ways that we're like Daenerys Targaryen. And that's what we're clicking. And it took us time to start clicking on the girls in Nigeria, but eventually we did. But you have to have the right mix, and it's a balancing game that has always been part of journalism, but is even more a central role now that most of the revenue has to come from online, especially in the future.
I'll tell you what's going on here. Facebook is going to make a big play into news because they are super behind Twitter. Nobody in journalism uses Facebook. Nobody. Because in Twitter, you're guaranteed that if you follow LA Times or any of us or, Kara Swisher, you're going to see every single one of Kara Swisher's, let's say, updates on a topic, right? And she did some great reporting on the New York Times head being fired.
Yeah, Jill Abramson, yeah.
Jill Abramson. So, I was following her all weekend, last weekend on that.
She was fabulous voice
on
that issue.
Right? And so I know that I'm going to get every one of Kara's stories. But if that was on Facebook, I would only get, because Facebook's algorithm decides what's on the top, which ones people, voted up, which is the stupidest proxy. I want all Kara Swisher all the time when and I want to be, treated with respect that if I pick them to follow, I'm going to get that. Well, Facebook, they've decided that the users will get the most viral stuff, so they keep coming back, but you don't get this like full view of the world. And so I think Facebook is desperately going to try to catch up to the one thing that Twitter has on them, which is where all the intelligent people are hanging out. And over time, you have Mark Andreessen, who's on the Facebook board, doing tweet storms. Right. And he is engaging the industry for hours a day on Twitter. And then I said to him, because he did a real big dig to Twitter, like in the valuation of Facebook versus Twitter. Right. And I wrote back to him, except that this conversation is occurring on Twitter, not Facebook. And he blocked me, which I thought is like, this is the greatest moment of my career, that Mark Andreessen, who's our friend, right? Like, he always invested in my last company, and we're friendly with each other. And I think, we have been, and we have business relationships. Except for now, yeah. Like, I send him deals and all this kind of stuff. Like, we're friends. But he blocked me because I kept riding that home to him as he was dissing Twitter. But this conversation is occurring on Facebook, but not on Facebook. No intelligent person is having, or powerful person is having, any discussions on Facebook. The Facebook discussions are with your family about Thanksgiving. The shit that's important in the world is happening on Twitter. None of us are going to discuss anything important on Twitter. And it's making Mark Zuckerberg mental. Yeah, of course, yes, Gina, yes. There's a ton of bullshit going on Twitter, of course. Right. But the truth is, pick the 100 most important intellectual people in the world right now, and then tell me their engagement on Twitter versus Facebook. It will be dominantly Twitter. Ben, I know you're very active on Facebook, so you're kind of proving my point. Ooh, I'm joking.
No, but there's a thing to remember here. One of these companies is worth a lot more than the other because a lot more people prefer using it because it's more filtered. And yes, you could argue, the intelligent people are on Twitter, but that doesn't mean it's a business. So I can't blame Facebook for the way it's doing things. That's why, that's why I launched Paper, so it could do news. Right. But people need filters, the majority. Like you and me and the three of us, we're content consumers on the extreme. We can handle Twitter, but most people can't.
This is the beginning of, and this whole thing with Mike chiming in here, I believe this is incredibly strategic. He basically threw this out there as a little thought bomb. Hey, pay attention to Facebook. Interesting. In the news space. They did the Paper thing, which is, really slick looking, but there's not much there. But they do some level of curation in that app. Like, they are actually, like Inside.com or Circa, actually picking the stories with a human. So that's actually kind of a big statement. Right. They hired somebody from the Washington Post, I believe, to work there on the news projects. So take a look, Gina, for that. But I think there's a Washington Post person who's joined, who's going to be like the intermediary between news organizations. They're going to make a huge push with news organizations. Liz Huron is the person's name. Thank you, Gina. They're going to make a huge push. And this is the start of the strategic discussion of how can news organizations be more involved in Facebook. But news organizations are run by smart people, and what they all realize is you can't make money off Facebook, and Facebook doesn't allow you to run ads, and they make you pay to reach your audience. Right. So if Recode has 100,000 followers on their Facebook page and 100,000 on Twitter, you get 100% delivery on Twitter, and you get 5% delivery on Facebook, and then ask to pay for it. Right. It's fractional, and they ask you to pay for the other 95%. So I think Facebook is going to change that. And I think Facebook may come out with a very compelling offer. This is what I would do if I was Zuckerberg or Liz Heron. I would go to all the publications and say, we'll guarantee you 100% delivery. We will give you each a stipend of $25,000 a month if you post daily in ads, so you can run ads to grow your traffic for the first 2 years. And we'll let you run ads on your pages or split advertising on your pages. Because people don't know this, but if you run an ad on your Facebook page, they will delete your Facebook page. So if I tried to sell on the Recode page or the This Week in Startups an ad, technically it's not allowed. Right. So when I thank the sponsors on the Facebook page, they could actually throw you off Facebook.
Fascinating.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
And like Twitter doesn't do that.
I mean, anyone in the news biz knows that social has become such a powerful way to direct people to your stories. You know, when I was at the Times, forgive me, I don't have the numbers in front of me anymore. I mean, I've been gone for a couple months. I mean, it was roughly, you know, a third people who fall on the LA Times site, a third coming from Twitter, and a third, like a third coming from Facebook. Yeah. You know, or in Google obviously is a big player in that. So obviously my percentages are off. But, you know, I've always often wondered why there isn't somebody who's aggregating the best content from all of the best news organizations and creating a really compelling offer that competes with Google News, say.
Well, that's what I'm doing with Inside.com, but obviously not doing it. But anyway, I mean, it's very interesting to see Facebook get more interested in this. In the same way, just so people know, there's been a covert effort by them over the last 2 years to try to catch up on celebrities.
Right.
So I have some friends who are celebrities, and they told me that Facebook came to them, like I'm talking major celebrities, and met with their people and were like, why are you not posting to Facebook? And they're like, well, I only reach 5% of my people. And Rainn Wilson called them out publicly about it and said, like, what's the point of Facebook if I get 100,000 fans, I only reach 5% of them? And Mark Andreessen, in like a very snarky way, responded to Rainn Wilson, do you do your comedy for free? Ooh. And I was like, you know, Mark, I don't think that's the best way as a board member of Facebook to interface with, you know, somebody they're trying to court. I mean, listen, I like it. I mean, I'm a rough and tumble guy, but it was a little bit weird. What do you think of Mark Andreessen saying that to Rainn Wilson? Pull that tweet up. Show it on the screen. If you can find it, Gina. Maybe you can pull it up. Ben, what do you think of that? The celebrity issue.
It's classic Mark Andreessen this year.
It is. He's tearing. I mean, I kid with him, but I mean, I just love the fact that there's somebody in the industry who just does not give a fuck. And it's like Kara Swisher and him, and there's like a bunch of people now who just like, they just speak on Twitter. It's just refreshing that like here it is. Turns out my Facebook is kind of worthless. I used to post and reach most of my 200,000 followers. Now I reach 5,000. So if you click on that, by the way, that tweet, and you actually go to not his name, but to the actual tweet, hit the back key, and then click on the actual date stamp. Right. Now you'll see, if you scroll down there, a Mark Andreessen. He might have a lot of responses. There it is. There's the Mark Andreessen tweet. So I'll pull this up. This is the money tweet. So just click on the timestamp again. Okay. Timestamp. Very good. Details. Now make that bigger. So he does his comedy for free too, right? And then you see my response. Problem, Mark, is Facebook duped everybody. People invested time and money to build likes. Rug got pulled out. Facebook has blah, blah, blah. Team, Anyway, you get the idea. We went all back and forth on it. All right, listen, it's been an amazing episode. Thank you to our sponsors who were Sharefile by Citrix and Mandrill. Thank you so much. And Bing. Thank you so much for sponsoring and making a great search engine that I use as my default on my mobile devices. The mobile stuff is great over there at Bing. Hey, Ben Parr of the Dominate Fund is coming out with his new book, Captivology. What a great name. Good job, Ben. How do we pre-order?
Pre-ordering will start at the end of this year.
Okay.
Captivology.com if you want to get early access.
Do you have an email on there, like a MailChimp, so I can sign up?
Yeah, just Captivology.com. It's right there.
All right, everybody do that, and we'll book you for the show when you got the book out. And thank you, Dawn. So great to have you on the program. You're awesome, knowledgeable, and you're another no bullshit recode journalist. I like it. I got you. I got Liz Gaines. I got Kara.
A great crew there.
Isn't it great? We haven't had Peter Kafka on in a while. We're going to have Peter Kafka do the news program, too, because he's so good, too. Now, you guys interface, because he's in New York. He's in Bay Ridge, my hometown, and you're here.
Yep.
So do you guys, collaborate a lot?
All the time.
Yeah, because he's real up on this stuff, too.
He's fabulous, yeah. He's the lead digital media writer. He's wired in a phenomenal way, so he breaks a ton of news. You know what I like about Recode is, everybody's an adult over there with 20 years experience or 30 years experience or 40 years experience. No offense, Walt. But people have been journalists. Walt's been a journalist since the 80s, right? 80s, 90s, thousands. He's in his fourth decade as a journalist. Kara Swisher, 80s, 90s. Right. She's in her fourth decade. You're in your second decade or third decade. I'm in my third decade. I'm in my third decade. You know what? And then you look at no offense to TechCrunch or anything like that, but it's it's a bunch of 20-somethings. And they don't do any, they ran that story at TechCrunch
about Google buying a company and they didn't even call them to check.
Here's
and
what
I'm like,
appealed
really?
to me.
I mean, I don't have high expectations of TechCrunch, but you ran a story about Google buying a company for $600 million on the wire and never called a Google executive to confirm?
I mean, Walt and Kara have been very clear that we don't spitball stories. We report stories. We don't aggregate. We don't regurgitate. We report. And that's what's phenomenal.
Yeah, so much better. I mean, it's like tiring to read these sites that like don't do a little bit of journalism. So everybody follow Dawn C331. 331.
Yeah.
Is that your area code? Dawn C from the 331? I like it. And everybody knows Ben Parr is Ben Parr with 2 R's. I'm at Jason. This is at TWI Startups. And thank you so much to an awesome team here producing the show. And we'll see you all next time.